much, and thanks for being there post-lunch. This is the third time I'm on the stage, so if you're bored, probably my co-panelists will be able to excite you. So thank you again. Now we have a different set of discussion points. Okay, sure. Is that fine? Yeah, okay. So we have a different set of panelists, and we carefully chose the mix of the experts here. I'll give the reason. We have Vikrant Shrotriya, Novo Nordisk. The name is enough for people who are in the industry. Has been a dominant force in diabetes and insulin management for how many years, I don't know. I mean, it's been a 100-year company. Just last month, they had a massive celebrations in Bangalore, and it's a strong name, even globally. So thanks so much, Vikrant. We have Shyamakant Giri. He represents Amneal. For those in the industry, Amneal is not a new name. Basically, in India, they have started a new commercial operations, but absolutely stuck with the manufacturing capabilities. In India, I think you have some 9 manufacturing units, yes. So we'll hear from him about his India vision, and that's the thought leadership that will come into play. And of course, Maharukh ma'am, a hardcore scientist. She has been front and center at her previous organization, Rubicon, which she co-founded. But now she leads a new organization, Never Say Die. It's always, scientists are always up doing something new. So that's the kind of conversation that we will be looking forward to having. And so let me start with Vikrant. Your company is making new waves in the US. And not before I spoke to him about half an hour ago, I knew that Novo Nordisk is the world's second largest pharma company with, in terms of market capitalization. That comes right after Johnson & Johnson. For a company which is about $20 billion, that shows the kind of optimism investors have in this organization. So even before this fact came out, I was very keen to understand exactly what keeps Novo Nordisk right at the top of the heap, even when we have so many generic competitors. And that's some kind of a magic, to many diabetologists that I speak to, they tell me that it's almost like Xerox. So tell us something about how you want to kind of progress from here, and how has been your journey. You've been with the same company for 2 decades, so there is enough excitement.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Vikas, first of all, inviting me here. It's very interesting, and I see quite a lot of digital mapping happening out here. I think some of the talks which has just happened, it's about being ahead of the curve. And I think that's the same thing in Novo Nordisk. Just to be ahead of the curve has been a constant innovation. And that constant innovation has kept us active, agile, and being a very preferred partner when it comes to diabetes. Diabetes is now a little bit a historical word in our vocab, because we are entering with foods into an area, obesity, other rare disease, and some of the disease areas where it matters. We have been always into complex molecules, biologics, not into small molecules. And what has kept this organization ahead is that they have been into difficult technologies. At the time when insulin was difficult to manufacture, we were actually trying to purify. When organizations were trying to purify, we got into biotechnology to see that with the precursor of insulin, we can supply to the world. Because somewhere in 70s, when it was very difficult that from where you can get insulin from the cows or pigs, we actually went into genetical engineering. Then came how we can be physiologically matching the insulin. Then came first generation, second generation. What I mean to say is that for rest of the world, it can mean just being there with insulin. For us, it's the entire world for us where we live. We live in a world where we master the protein chemistry. For somebody else, it's just insulin. And I think from that genesis of insulin, this GLP-1 has come, which has given us array of or multidimensional approach to get into obesity, to get into NASH, to get into CVD, to get into the area of Alzheimer's. And it is opening up some of those unmet needs which really Novo Nordisk is trying to fulfill. And something which resonates very well in India, from the pharmacy of the world to being into the innovation world. And I personally believe that yes, you can multiply, you can produce a lot, and we can be third largest producer. But I think time has come that we also need to innovate in India if we want to really lead and if we really want to be ahead in terms of the curve.
Sure.
Back to you.
Right. We'll have more on that in the next round. Mr. Giri, most of the times we talk about the Indian market as being extremely saturated. And, there are just like hundreds of generic knockoffs of the same molecule. Within days, you have, price competition going through a completely haywire structure. And all the patented molecules suddenly become like, 10 rupees or 15 rupees. How do you describe your entry into the market at this late stage? And what opportunities do you see here? Till the time it was manufacturing, one could understand that there are cost benefits and we have technical superiority and we can actually cut down on the processes of chemistry. But to have a presence in the market, if you can tell us about that.
Thank you, Vikas, and thank you, ET Health, for inviting me. I'll go a little back and also talk about Amneal a bit. Amneal is a new company. I'm sure many of you would know Amneal. Started in 2002. It is a US-based listed company. We have 3 lines of business in US. One is what we call as affordable medicine line, the specialty line and the biosimilars line. We do approximately $2.5 billion. We are the number 3 company in the US by prescription. All that we do in US is manufactured in 9 US FDA plant in India, 4 in the US and 1 in Ireland. So we are sitting on at least 584 ANDAs consisting of peptides, complex molecules, injectables, bag, and all of that. Amneal was very focused in terms of what they wanted to achieve in US. So the first 20 years, they really focused very well. They wanted to break into the top 5 club, which did that. Okay, and as a part of diversification now, they want to come out. Okay, so we are starting in India from a position of strength. India has an employee base of 7,000 people, 9 plant, all 9 US FDA approved. Okay. Now, from a go-to-market strategy, we want to have an imagery of biopharma company in India. Okay, and we are looking all the therapy from a lens of innovation. Example, we want to get into hospitals with a range of ready-to-use IV bags, the capability of which we have already. So I'm making things that I'm supplying to a US patient, and the same thing, our narrative is very simple, that Indian patients also should have access to the same US quality. Okay. Ready-to-use as a concept is new in India. For example, the vancomycin, let me give you an example here. Vancomycin needs to be compounded by the nurse and then given to the patient. We have ready-to-use bag. In Opthal, we have a biosimilar pipeline. We are getting into onco. What we are incubating in onco can be the first theranostic company in India, where we will go to the patient or the doctor and offer both diagnostic and therapeutics. We have a rare disease pipeline. We do have a neurology pipeline, okay, and all of that is available on amneal.com. So the approach in India, and I agree, Vikas, I agree that entry barriers and India is pharmacy of the world and and very settled companies, and on this side of the spectrum, we have very entrepreneurial companies are doing a lot of things, and on this side, we have multinationals and all of that. But I still feel that there are unmet needs. There are unmet needs, and we are very, very focused on the therapies that we want to enter. And we are we have a great insight on patient journey of those therapies. And that's how we want to plan to make a difference in patients' life. So this is what we want to do in Amneal in India.
It's been how long for you to be here in the Indian market?
India, we started our journey in 2008.
No, in terms of the commercial presence.
Commercial 1 year.
Okay. So how's been the experience?
Fantastic. We are already in hospital business.
Okay.
Okay. The first business that we started is hospital business. The second business that we are incubating is Opthal. In hospital business, we are not into the run-of-the-mill and infective and all of that. As I told you, what we did was we studied the entire crash course of emergency medicine, operation theater, ICU, and there were at least 40 molecules that they needed ready to use. So we have auto-injectors, pre-fills, ready-to-use bags, and all of that. So that's the approach. And that is something Amneal has been doing for years in the US.
Right.
So that's where it's going well so far, so good.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting. Yeah. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Vikas.
Maharukh ma'am, your turn. It's pretty tough to believe that after you've actually been with an organization right from the founding stages and 15, 16 years, and then you start on your own. That also with very specific niche products. And that'll be a story which our audiences will want to hear on how you can actually make a change with absolute cutting-edge science applied on delivery systems. So in short, if you can give us some brief about how the progress has been with you.
Yeah, so thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very interesting event. It's a very different type of event, and I'm very happy to be here. I am basically a hardcore scientist, and I've always been into research and formulation development, which is my core competency area. And after 15 years working in different big pharmas, in '99 I set up my first company as a co-founder, which is Rubicon Research. It was at that time India's first pioneering contract research in the formulation space, and we set it up from scratch. And after taking it all the way to a plant and multiple clients and lots of growth up to 14, 15 years, I decided to step aside for some personal reasons. And I actually took a sabbatical for 2.5 years because I had a non-compete, and I follow the letter of the law. Whatever agreements I sign, I follow. That's my ethic. So I just took a back seat. I went back to my institute and started interacting with the PhD students there. And many of the professors over there are my contemporaries, my friends. So I had to, really find ways to spend my time. From a 24/7 job, I was back to doing nothing. So I started doing that. I wrote a book in between with some of the professors. And while I was there, I was thinking, what will I do ahead? And while I was thinking that, I thought of many things. I thought maybe I can start training people in R&D, because I firmly believe, and I see it every day, that the talent which comes out from our academia is not really industry ready. And they are not really up to the level of requirements which we have of them, not only with respect to scientific understanding, which is there to quite some degree, but also the mindset, the work ethic, the value systems, how they, do the work with commitment and, accountability. That I always find is a big gap, and we really need to train people into it. So I thought of that, but then I thought I'll get bored in 2 months' time. So finally I decided that I will do research, because that's what is my first love. But when I was thinking, what would I do? And I definitely decided one thing, that I'm not going to set up an infrastructure and spend my time trying to keep it running and operational. I thought I will build all my assets into IP and into products and into technologies, which will help solve some unmet needs. So I went about trying to find some of them, and through a lot of iteration and lot of effort, which all of us go through in the industry, I came across 2 areas. One of them was the topical area, where I developed a range of products which are anti-friction gels, very unique applications. That's our patented technology. And after I did that, I also set up a collaboration at ICT with one of the professors, where I have some PhD students and postdoc students, where we work on long-acting injections. Again, these are not generic products. These are more unmet need 505(b)(2) type of products. And we are doing things in a very different way. We are very lean. We are all of 25 people. And we are working on a range of products, and many of them are at different stages. And we are also funded by BIRAC for one of our projects, which is a very interesting malaria project. So I continue doing this research, and I'm hoping that slowly we will be able to monetize it with relevant and appropriate partners. That's the pathway to monetizing, because I definitely want to see that the products reach the market. They have been selected with a lot of thought, with a lot of validation of the concept through doctors and clinicians, and a lot of number crunching on the value add that it can bring. Plus, being in India, we do things in a very, very cost-effective, resourceful manner. We use our resources very, very efficiently, I would say. And I'm hoping that that is where we will go, because as everyone said, we have been the pharmacy capital of the world. I think we should be the research capital of the world. We have the capability.
Absolutely.
And I can also see the difference in the environment. When we started Rubicon, I remember, we had to spend 1 year to get our first loan of 20 lakhs to buy an HPLC machine. This is 99. People only were interested in IT. But today it's very different. You have DST, you have BIRAC. So you have a lot of funding options from the government, but we still lack risk funding in the country. This is a big problem, I find. So if I take something up to animal level, and if I go to the big, big Indian companies, they will still say, no, 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 I want to see the human data. But if I have human data, why will I come to you? Then I'll go somewhere else. So this is a problem, and this was exactly the same problem in early 2000. So what happens is that our industry moves ahead, our aspirations move ahead, but somehow our risk-taking ability is still very back. If a company which is 25,000 cannot invest 13 crores in a project which is supposed to bring you 50 million in 3 years, I don't know where we are going. So this is everybody talks big about research, but when it comes to putting the money on the table or backing science, they back out. And I think this is a big challenge.
Purely coincidental that your Novo Holdings is so big in terms of funding new startups. I just got to know about Novo Holdings work, and it's bigger than Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So would you like to share some thoughts?
Yeah, I'm actually not the right person, but yeah, Novo Holdings have got the majority shareholding in Novo Nordisk. So, and Novozymes and Novo IT and many other organizations, but I think they also have got major stakeholding in 250 promising organizations across the globe. And out of that, actually 3 are in India, you know. And these 3 are basically forward-looking organizations, primarily into diagnostics and cutting-edge research as well. So I wish and hope what you are actually talking about, having that risk-taking ability, and I think that makes the difference. Research is a risk-taking game. And I think we had earlier research collaborations in India, and something which is extremely important in India is to have those research collaboration, those joint partnership in terms of the development, without which nothing will happen. We talk about it, that internal research, but along with an internal research, we also talk about externalization of research. We do have 15,000 scientists doing the research, but then innovation is not the custodian. I mean, an individual or an organization is not the custodian of innovation. There is a globe outside, there is a world outside. It can happen in a very small laboratory somewhere across the globe. So I think we as an organization, we actively seek and try to find out where the innovation can come, which can have a meaningful outcome and can make a larger difference in life as well as in the society. So, yeah, and we are actually always actively looking out for those collaborations we have got with Oxford, with Toronto, Now in the data science, we even have with Berkeley. So we keep on doing these things because, I mean, alone, I don't think so this journey, you can really walk this journey alone.
One of the companies you're invested in is Cure AI, right?
Yeah, it's Cure AI, which is, I guess, is in tuberculosis. So, yeah, means it's quite a large investment which Novo Nordisk has done. I'm not qualified to disclose the investment, but it may be there in the Google. But I think these are the kind of organizations where we are. Mad Genome is another one which is there. Then another hospital chain which we have actually also invested in India. So, yeah, it has been a playground where Novo Foundation has been doing quite a lot of, Novo Holdings has been doing quite a lot of job.
Yeah, I brought up this name because in the morning we discussed that organization. So it shows that the investments are flowing in the right direction. So I just had a quick question. I had this name right after a couple of tries, Amaterasu. Does anyone want to take a guess on exactly what that means in the audience or here? Any guesses? Don't Google. So, yeah, ma'am, you want to say something? Because that's very interesting.
So, Amaterasu is actually a Japanese name of the sun goddess in the Shinto religion. And that's the only religion which has a sun goddess and not a god. So, and I am a Leo. So, my husband thought it would be a very good name for my new company. He
so
knows me.
Sun goddess, not sun god.
Not sun god. And second thing is it derives from the word Amateru, which means the Almighty God shining in the sky and illuminating heaven. And since I'm all the time talking about research and finding out new connections and new solutions, I thought that both ways it fits very well into the philosophy of what this company is all about.
Now, with that name, also, I think something that is very fascinating happening in your lab is about that injection that you described about malaria.
Actually, we are collaborating with Professor Padma Devarajan's lab at ICT. And Professor Padma had actually developed this product when I was in my sabbatical, and I went around and saw the product, and I saw the animal data. So basically, in malaria, you have multi-dose therapy. Either it is a combination, artemisinin is the leading one, or plain artemisinin injection. The problem is because if you don't follow up the artemisinin injection with the combination, you will get into recrudescence and resistance. And that's exactly the problem which has occurred today. WHO has recently issued a note on strategy on how to fight emerging resistance in Africa. So it's a big burning problem. It's taking lives. So 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it used to be loss of 400,000 lives per annum. Post-pandemic, it has become 100,000 lives. And what we have developed together is a single-dose injection of artemisinin and artemether and lumefantrine. It works at a very low dose because there are multiple mechanisms. So it's a single injection of intramuscular which you give, and you will get complete cure. Multiple PD studies have been done. And we are currently into animal PK, animal talks, and we really want to take it forward. I think it's the need of the hour, and I'm trying to push BIRAC to fund me, and I'm trying to go to other companies to fund me because I think it can save lives. But it is research. We all know what happens in animals may or may not happen in humans. Yeah. We will always try to find solution to the problems. The intent is very honorable, and that is research. You are doing things and you're trying to do things. You're not always 100% successful, but if you apply the science and the basics very clearly, you will be able to see the roadblocks ahead and take care of them. And that's why we have to do very diligent work. And I'm very hopeful that we will find funding to take it through very quickly. That's my hope. That's what we are trying to do.
This has not yet entered human studies.
No, it is at animal stage, and maybe if we get funding for the next stage soon, we have applied to BIRAC, then it will go into animal stage next year. But being proven old drugs, it should be easier. We don't really need to do the all-out work. We are also trying to contact WHO and all with the current crisis and see if it helps them. So that's where we are with the product, but it's a very interesting product. And it's phenomenal the way it works at less than 1/10 the dose, single dose. It really works very well. Thank you.
How receptive was the BIRAC part, ma'am? Was it like strong resistance, or did they really want to fund you readily?
BIRAC is like a manna from heaven for researchers like us.
Oh, really?
And the schemes are very good, let me tell you that. But the problem comes that just this week we had our technical evaluation round, and we have some professor, biology professor, sitting somewhere and saying, single dose can never work. I said, madam, we have done 12 trials. No, but it can never work. That's it, without looking at the data, because that reviewer doesn't understand the data. So this is a problem that many of the TEP members are very, very supportive. We get very good suggestions from them also. But sometimes we run against such a wall because they don't believe what we are saying. And I find that very difficult. I mean, because I tell them, look, we have a very senior researcher from the academia. I'm a very senior researcher from the industry. I have done 505B2s, NDAs, everything. I know what I'm talking about. Please believe me. And you come down, but they give you only 8 minutes and 7 minutes. And within 15 minutes, how are you supposed to show them 5 years of data? So somebody has to believe you when I say it is effective. So that is the little bit of a problem which we are facing, but otherwise, it's fantastic, the support that we get from them. We go to them with any problem. They will always put us in touch with some mentor, somebody, some advisor. And like I'm saying, it's 10 years old. I wish it was there 25 years old. I would have developed more products, for sure. Thanks. Thank you.
Right. Ma'am brought an important point about from pharmacy capital to research capital. Both you and Novo Nordisk have that capabilities which can actually make that happen, maybe even in a smaller form. Would you like to take that part of really shifting some of your hardcore research here in India? Yeah.
I can tell you that if at all, one of the leading multinationals as a company, we are probably having a pole position in terms of participation of research in India. Of course, in phase 3, we are yet not into the basic research, but what I can share is the second largest company is just half of us in terms of having the clinical trials, which we have got in India. If at all, after the sales force, I have got the largest of the department in my organization is actually the clinical trial specialist, which are to the tune of 150 people sitting in Bangalore. And we are actually participating in 22 clinical trials in India. So there is no product in Novo Nordisk for which virtually we are not doing clinical trials in India. It is called as the trial spatial cell across the world, like 6 or 7 we have got. And not only that, we have got also the shared services in which we have got 400 people who are participating at the back end of the clinical trials. That means the data points and medical writing and clinical research, preparations, protocols. So I'm very proud of these footprints, other than having the footprints of commercial organization which we have got in India. And I believe this can only go forward. Regarding the basic research, of course, the ecosystem is evolving. And I wish and hope that probably in the near time, we can see India as a place where we can have also basic research. Today, we don't have, but I also pray, being an Indian, that hopefully we should have.
I just want to add something here.
Yeah.
So clinical trials is in India. Of course, it's there because we have a naive population, which is very valuable to do a clinical trial. And we have a big, people force over here to do all the work and the back end and all. But I'm talking of innovation. And that's where, innovation, if you look at it, it happens in the academic labs, which are funded by the government. And it happens in the big Indian companies over here. It doesn't happen with multinationals. It's very limited. It's there. So what happens is that the academic research, the way it is done by people who have never worked in the industry or never talked to the FDA or DCGI. So it is done scientifically, but it's not enough to get into regulatory. And our venture with ICT is to develop 2 or 3 products in an academic institute, take it all the way through the commercialization so that experience is built in the academic institute. That is my intent. Okay, so having said that, I think that that innovation has to be here. For example, recently, FDA is advising, don't do animal studies, go to modeling. We don't have modeling experts in India. I have to go to Simulations Plus. I can't afford them. Then I have to really work on it myself and develop it. You understand? This is where the problem is. We don't have those support systems to do the type of work we are doing, and we struggle with them. We do it. But what would take 3 years will take 5 years.
What would actually take a much shorter route in an evolved system in the US probably takes a much longer and strenuous time, right? Sir, your turn on R&D.
On the, I have seen a slight, shift in the thinking of CEOs actually, and I think, earlier the holy grail was let me establish a US business. The Indian CEOs would end up saying that, go global, have an office in Europe, have been top 10 in the US and all of that. The same CEOs are now talking about the next novel drug should be and must be from India. So that change is occurring. Okay. Of course, there are issues about academia partnership, government funding, and one NCA would cost upwards of $200 million. How much of that government is willing to pay and all of that. But I think the journey is begun in many ways, and we will very soon see the next novel drug from India. And as Amneal, we do have scientists, around 1,000 of them in R&D, mostly doing 505(b)(2) kind of work. Right. But we do have intent to develop an NCE. We have academia collaboration, but in US, not in India. One of my job is to build that ecosystem where we are closer to academia, even in India.
Sure. At the next conference, we would like to hear
Sure,
that.
sure, Vikas.
Wonderful. Again, I have run out of luck on time, so not before a couple of questions come from the audience. Is anyone interested in asking something? No? All right, okay. Thank you so much for being very patient listeners and being in the room. And hopefully this was important and you all could gain some insights. We had all, the mix of organizations, large company, entry-level organization, but very large, and then the R&D efforts from ma'am. So thank you so much for sharing your insights, and thanks again, audiences, for being so patient. Thank you so much.